Welcome back, guys, to JavaSpace. So in the previous video we saw how we can expose actuator endpoints, but now we want to secure them. We want to only expose certain endpoints and not expose other endpoints. We also want to secure those endpoints, so there are several approaches you can use. So the default configuration is that the health endpoint is exposed by default, as we have mentioned, and we will see that in the demo. But now you might want to override this default configuration. Let's say you only want to expose info and beans. That's your use case. So how can you achieve that? You'll achieve that by just saying management.endpoints.web.exposure.include info, beans. So you're only exposing those two endpoints. You have overridden the default configuration. You can also expose every endpoint or everything, and you use a wildcard to achieve that. You can just say you can just put star after the equal sign, which means you expose everything. But so far what we have done is not real security in reality. It has a lot of limitations. Let's say, for instance, you want to allow certain group of users to access specific endpoints while also refusing access to other users. You see that you may not be able to achieve such kind of complex requirements with your property file. This is where now Spring Security comes to our rescue. We can secure endpoints, actuator endpoints, the same way we secure our controllers. And for you to achieve that, the first thing you have to do, you have to add Spring Security into the class path. As you see here, just Spring Boot Starter Security into the class path, which will by default secure every other endpoint in the application, including the actuator endpoints. So once you have added your Spring Security, there is the first approach that you can use to secure your endpoint. Remember, in our previous video we overrode the base path and gave it new name. So I'm just going to continue with that. In the case you didn't override it, you were going to replace that new name with actuator. So we are saying in this configuration, a security configuration, we are saying all the beans endpoint is accessible by anyone. But we are saying the health endpoint can only be accessed by people who have role admin or who has authority admin. If they don't have this role admin authority, they will not be able to access the health endpoint. And every other thing should require authentication. But now, this approach, as much as it is nice, it does achieve what we want, it also has its own limitations. Remember, it's possible to change the base endpoint. Let's say in future we want to change the base endpoint to something else. It means now our security is not going to work anymore. We would have to come and update our security configurations, which is not what we want. So Spring Security has provided us the way to counteract that. So the second approach is to use the EndpointRequest class to get that particular beans endpoint. So in this case now, our application is now agnostic of a path. If we change that path, let's say, because it's possible for you, sorry, if you change that base path, it won't affect you anymore. And also, the first approach is prone to errors because it's possible that you may not want to access your beans with the beans endpoint. You can map this beans endpoint to something else that is only required by you. Even when you do that also, it means now you are also stuck. You have to do the changes if you use this approach. But now if you use this approach, the beans endpoint which would have been mapped to what you want will also not be affected. So that's why we are recommended by Spring to use this approach of specifying the URL endpoints for our actuators. So now we see here, we are saying the beans endpoint is accessible to everyone, whereas the health endpoint is only accessible to someone who have role admin. And this is the same configuration, except that the latter is base path or endpoint agnostic. If you do some changes, you won't need to come to your security to update your configurations.